Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for our webinar. We're glad to have you here. We appreciate you spending some time this morning with us at RLE. This morning, we are joined by Cam Rogers, who's going to talk to us about RLE installations outside the data center. Your presenters this morning are myself. I'm Jenny Peterson. I'm the Manager of Marketing and Communications at RLE. I've been here for more than 10 years, and our department is responsible for everything printed that comes from RLE, the website, the e-commerce site, press releases, pretty much anything that is written and comes out of the company falls under our umbrella. And our main presenter today is Cam Rogers. He has been with RLE for more than 20 years, and he has a greater span of that experience in channel management, and also working directly with our customers. He is our guru for designing site monitoring, leak detection, integration systems. I am guessing all of you are familiar with Cam, and we are so grateful to have him and his wealth of knowledge with us today. So today we're going to talk about RLE installations outside the data center. We know that the data center is a very common and natural niche for our products, but we have actually had installs in a wide variety of places, and we wanted to take the time today to share how those installs worked, how they've been successful, and the products we've used. So we'll look at different verticals, talk about a lot of different arenas where our products are used, and then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A and discussions. As always, you can submit your questions to us in the chat as we go. If you want to put them in the main chat, that'll go to everyone, and everyone will be able to see those questions, or you can hit the drop down and send them directly to RLE if you don't want the question in the public forum, and I'll moderate and ask those questions at the end. We're going to try a little different adventure this time for our Q&A session, and we are going to open the mics up so we could have kind of a roundtable discussion, or you can verbally ask your questions if you'd like, have a bit of time for an exchange of ideas. So when we get to the very end, we'll open up your mics and you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll have some space for open conversation and idea sharing at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cam.
Thank you, Jenny. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Cam.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to start with a quick question, and basically it's an oldie but a goodie, but if a tree falls in the woods and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a noise? And the question that I'm putting here now is, if an alarm goes off in the middle of the night and there's nobody to hear it, does it make a noise? It's certainly going to it may result in costly damage. Now, since 1984, RLE has been providing products to help identify issues that might result in costly damage. Our product offering also includes products that provide direct alarm notification to help ensure that those stakeholders are aware of those unacceptable conditions in areas that they're responsible for. Historically, those environments have primarily been data centers due to the sensitivity of the environmental conditions within data centers. Certainly, water and electronics don't get along real well. High temperatures are a concern. Now we are seeing more and more computer equipment that is a little more tolerant of higher temperatures, but certainly environmentals there, temp, humidity, even intrusion are big concerns. But the reality is the status of sensors and equipment is a concern in every facility. Alarms from sensors and equipment are only effective if there's someone there to hear the alarm, or if it is routed to the right people that can actually help resolve that issue in a timely manner. Now, it's a very bold statement saying that we exist to prevent disasters, but the reality is, when you think about the typical chain of events that happens when an event does occur, it's kind of a series of dominoes, so to speak. So you're going to have that first issue, which might be a water leak, and then the water leak gets to a power area, power, something along those lines. But what we're really trying to do is identify those issues early on in the chain and pull those early dominoes out so we can prevent disasters. Now, as far as preserving our clients' reputation, certainly, you have, when you're looking at service providers, for example, you have the immediate costs for repairs, but in a service provider situation, you also have the cost of customer confidence. And if customers can't get into a cloud-based service, or if a customer can't get access to something because of damage or repairs that are being done, now certainly it can impact your reputation. And then certainly what we are trying to do is provide that peace of mind. The question that comes to mind, what keeps facility managers up at night? What are their concerns? And if we can provide that visibility to those areas of concern, provide that alarm notification in a timely manner, it can certainly help them sleep better at night and provide that peace of mind. Now, RLE is designed and offers products. One right up front, I want to mention, no fees, no subscriptions, maintenance agreements are required. Simply put, there's no reoccurring costs for our products. We're certainly seeing a trend these days that there are a lot of manufacturers out there that are incorporating recurring costs or service fees or maintenance agreements with their products, and it's an ongoing expense. Whereas at RLE, we feel that that money next year should be spent to enhancing your system and not just keeping it running. We provide reliable products. I was talking with one of our customers that's actually in the process of a global rollout right now, and he says, we're going to keep buying your products because honestly, he said, I've heard it from site managers all around the world that they install their products and they work. And he said, that's what I need. I don't need headaches. I don't need problems. And with RLE's products and the way they're designed, the simplicity and the reliability of those products, he says, we're going to keep buying them. We also are routinely quoting cables to customers that might have bought Seahawk controllers more than 20 years ago. And they're incorporating and they just want to go ahead and add some cable to it. And that really does play to the reliability of the products. When we receive those calls for support from early generation FMS and they say, we bought one in 2004 and it's working great, but we just had a couple of questions. Certainly once I introduce them to some of the new features and functionality, they generally are going to step up. But the bottom line is, we're providing those products that are going to really survive the test of time. And it's that peace of mind and that reliability that keeps customers coming back and buying more from us. Now, first, I thought it might make sense to kind of take a quick look at the market that has been our most successful vertical, which is certainly the data center arena. Fortunately for us, computer room air conditioners, crack units, CRA units, computer room air handler units, they have chilled water lines or glycol lines. They're in most of the larger data centers, and now you're introducing that, obviously a conductive fluid into a very sensitive environment, and that's been a real big driving factor for our leak detection. Like I say, water and electronics just don't get along. But the most common applications for the sensing cable, we see it put around drip pans. We see it encapsulating areas or rooms of concern around the perimeter of the room. We see it encapsulating the sources of leaks. So maybe just if there's a pump or something off to the side where that leak might be, encapsulating that. Commonly, we see it serpentine patterns underneath the raised floor where it's running back and forth, and that gives you a little bit better, you're getting a little bit better visibility to obviously water that comes down before it spreads out. And then, we also see it a fixed overhead supply return lines to quickly identify the threats before they fall into critical areas. And the nice thing about that's where that serpentine pattern really comes into play, because if you have an over-the-head leak, but you only have a perimeter around the outside of a room, it might take a while to spread out. But with a serpentine pattern underneath that raised floor, it's going to go ahead and drip, and it's going to roll, and you're going to catch it a lot more quickly. Today, we're seeing a lot of data centers with and without raised floors, but they're commonly specifying leak detection products installed. The threats are everywhere. Insurance companies aren't blind in the money that's been paid out to it. So it doesn't have to be a raised floor application for leak detection to be an applicable product. Some of the larger sites referred to as hyperscale data centers. I've seen some of those sites that require more than 50,000 feet of sensing cable in a single site. So certainly the opportunities and the applications and certainly the opportunities for large purchase orders are out there with some of those sites. Now, why is our cable so well received? Simply put, it's very easy to install. You lay the cable down, connect it to the controller, power the controller, you have a functional system. You want to get into some more of the configurations, that's pretty straightforward, but our user guides have done a great job as far as providing all the information you need in order to incorporate and direct alarm notification. But the other thing is that the leak detection systems, we've designed them to eliminate false alarms, and that's a real driving factor. Whereas other cables on the market are going to be more prone to nuisance and false alarms because they have conductive jackets on their sensor wires, and a little dirt or a little dust over time might bridge those sensor wires and create an alarm condition. Whereas when you look at the picture here, you actually have a conductive, non-conductive polymer mesh that the fluid has to leach through, bridge through the twist of the cable to the next sensing wire, and before an alarm condition occurs. So it's really designed to eliminate false alarms, and that's a big part of the success of the leak detection. Now, the fact that our distance read systems can pinpoint the location of a leak, and that long lengths of sensing cable are generally connected to a distance read system, this certainly helped drive the sensing cable sales. And a big part of the reason that to date, we've sold approximately 20 million feet of our patented sensing cable worldwide. Now, when I look at as far as our Falcon and Raptor products in the data center, very commonly I'm seeing the F200 installed in data closets, a great way that you can actually go ahead and see as far as have visibility to 8 dry contacts, 4 temp humidity, a leak detection cable, and even IP cameras, and with a basic on-off kind of control functionality. But again, ideal for small little areas. The FMS has been very popular in computer rooms that are looking at wired solutions. It's a cost-effective way to have visibilities of sensors and equipment and get those alarms to the right people, and kind of use it as a stepping stone until budgets do allow for more comprehensive management solutions. I see a lot of customers that'll go ahead and they have nothing on site. They have quite a bit of a number of sensors on site, local alarms. Now they want to go ahead and they're looking to incorporate a DSIM, data center infrastructure management system, or something a little bit more comprehensive, but the budget doesn't allow it. The nice thing is with a Falcon FMS, they can go ahead and aggregate all those different sensors and signals. It's very scalable in that sense. And then we can actually go ahead, as their budget allows, use that and push that information out via SNMP or Modbus or BACnet protocols and integrate that into a management system very easily. So now it becomes middleware, where it was kind of the front end. It now becomes middleware, just aggregating all those different sensors and equipment. The scalability from 8 to 104 inputs, again, just by adding expansion cards. Not a lot of products that give you that kind of scalability within a single device. The protocols that we can accommodate, what we're doing, again, one thing that if you don't understand about RLE, we're very strong when it comes to protocols. And many of our products have actually SNMP, Modbus, BACnet protocols integrated into them for integration. So it makes it very easy to integrate that information. Now, with the FMS, we actually can accept SNMP, Modbus, and BACnet protocols, and using it as a primary device to secondary other devices that are out there, aggregating all that information, and then we can push that information out via SNMP, Modbus, or BACnet. So now it kind of acts as a protocol translator, so to speak. But because of that functionality, no products on the market that I'm aware of that gives you that functionality to accept SNMP, Modbus, and BACnet at the price point what we're doing with the Falcon FMS. It also has that logic control built in. So we can actually go ahead and create situations based on events. So if temperature gets high, turn on ventilation. If you see a door is open, trigger a camera, but we have that if then and or logic built into the FMS. And then the addition to Delta View maps really take it to a whole nother level. So now you just upload a floor plan of your facility and you can have a nice comprehensive view of everything going on, a little bit more intuitive than just kind of an Excel spreadsheet look with all the values. Now you can see how the sensors are laid out, where they're laid out, and what the conditions are, a little bit more visibility to it. And then we took that a step further and we incorporated what we call our Nest functionality that gives me the ability to let the FMS be used as a single monitoring device for 32 other FMS. So a campus environment, I could have 32 FMS in that campus, all pulled back into one FMS. One FMS is providing visibility to those 32 installs. And we can carry that further, another layer. So maybe that nest of 32, I could have that as a single input, in addition to another 31 inputs on another FMS. So now I have, I guess the best way to describe it is kind of a crazy analogy, but you can have basically an egg, you can have 32 eggs in a nest. So now I have visibility with 32 sites within one click, but I can have 32 nests in a tree. So now I can have visibility to well over 1,000 installs within literally 2 clicks. And this is standard functionality and feature on the FMS. So again, a lot of horsepower, a lot of functionality built into it as it ships out the door with no additional costs, no recurring costs. We also are seeing a big push right now as far as with the Wing wireless products in the data centers. I do strongly recommend that you check out our blog post. It's called Mythbusters Security and Wing Wireless Monitoring. We have that posted a couple places. It's on the Wing page of our website. It's in our blog section, and I think it's even one of the scrolling images on our homepage. But it really does address a lot of the biggest concerns about wireless signals in the data centers and why our Wing products are so well received and being rolled out globally, some of the largest colos in the world. The transmit distances with our Wing products, it's unsurpassed as far as with an 868 or 900 megahertz signal, the way we're pushing those. And then the battery life, again, nothing like it with a 10 to 12 year battery life. It's kind of a set it and forget it mentality as far as most people are concerned. So again, a few products that have been very popular within the data center. I think what I really want to stress is that, those days of data center kind of mentality or terminology, the days of the sneaker reports really need to be behind us. And that sneaker report is literally a site manager putting on some gym shoes and walking around the site with a clipboard and checking things out to see what the conditions are. There's no reason to have that mentality at this day and age with all the communication and notification systems that we offer. And we really need to make sure that those alarms are routed to the appropriate people. As I mentioned, those issues are going to start small, and then they're going to snowball quickly. So the quicker you can get that information to the right person, and I keep stressing that, the more important it's going to be. You want to really identify those before they become critical and get out there and resolve them. And certainly the localized summer alarms are only going to be effective if somebody is there to hear them. If alarm goes off in the middle of the night, nobody hears it, what good is it? Getting those alarms out to the right people and making sure that they are not nuisance alarms, not false alarms, but real situations that somebody needs to address is imperative today. And then also reduce budgets. We're seeing a lot of, as far as reduced staff, and with reduced staff, less people have visibility to the conditions on site. So again, that's where an alarm notification system is going to be imperative. The reality is these factors are all issues that every facility or structure really for that matter is facing, and why RLE's products are now commonly being installed outside the data center. What I really want to do is get you thinking outside the box and start thinking more about other opportunities for RLE's products that are outside the data center. Now, I'm not going to run through each of these bullet points, but obviously a little bit of water, it doesn't take long for a little bit to become a lot. And, the reality is that unfortunate situations are usually driving the need for our products. It's kind of afterthought, and people say, you know what, I wish we would have had that, but we need to get something in place now because we had an issue. Now, companies just aren't as proactive as they should be. Generally, we're seeing that reactionary mentality, and budgets certainly are going to free up once the damage is done. And that's, obviously what ends up happening is people can't get something installed quick enough at that point. Now, throughout this presentation, in addition to mentioning some case studies that can be found on our website, I'm going to be sharing some stories of customers who waited until after the damage was done, before they realized the importance of incorporating a monitoring system with alarm notification. We do have a number of case studies that we've actually even posted on our website. I'm not going to do deep dives into the case studies and read the case studies that have already been written and posted on our site. I do recommend that you take some time, review the case studies that we have already posted as well. Now, unfortunately, some of the names of actual customers can't be shared due to NDAs that are in place, but I think you might get a pretty good idea. And if you think you might know who I'm talking about, there's a chance you probably do. Now, ultimately, where are the opportunities outside the data center? Now, historically, whenever I was talking with somebody about where are the opportunities and who do I talk to or who do you want to talk to, it was, get the data center manager down and the facility manager to sit down at a table and get them all together, which is sometimes like oil and water, but getting them to sit down, and because certainly shared budgets goes much, much further. Now what we're doing is we're just looking at facility managers and facility management companies that are managing maybe even location properties. But now we're looking at who is managing a specific facility, not just focusing on data center managers. Now, the first vertical that I want to talk about is the corporate and university campuses, also school districts. As we already know, the opportunity already exists within the data centers within this vertical. But now, when you start looking at large campuses, they're going to have communication rooms that are everywhere. Generally, they might be referred to as an MDF or an IDF. An MDF stands for a main distribution frame, whereas IDF stands for an independent distribution frame. An MDF is really the main computer room for servers and hubs and routers and DSLs, where basically those are located. Where an IDF, it might be more of a remote room or a closet that's all connecting back to that MDF, which you might find patch panels or hubs or other communication, maybe even some servers for that matter. In many cases, what we generally see is older buildings. A lot of those IDFs might even be old janitor's closets that might still have a sink sitting off in the corner. So certainly there's a concern there. But what we're really looking at is that the IDFs are going to be distributed in numerous locations within each building all around a campus. And since they do contain essential equipment, certainly visibility to the conditions in that IDF is going to be critical. One of the webinars that's posted on our website titled RLE in Higher Education, Solutions for College and University was a discussion with Jay Harris, who's the Director of Data Center Services and Facilities and also University of Chicago's Raymond Parpart, Director of Data Center Strategies and Operations, and how they've incorporated RLE's products in their facilities. Since that webinar, it's a little bit more, or since that kind of case study is a little bit more data center oriented, I'm not going to get into examples from that webinar, but you might want to check it out when you get a chance. As a side note, I do know that Ray is planning on incorporating RLE's products elsewhere around the campus, getting out of that MDF and looking at some of the IDFs now as well. Another opportunity or a recent install that we did, Colorado's, as far as University of Northern Colorado, and it's a case study that we have. They had initially installed some leak detection over one of their server rooms. They were concerned about leaks, and it certainly it paid for itself pretty quickly. But as they've got more comfortable with RLE's products, they started incorporating it again in other areas around the campus where critical equipment or critical infrastructure might be located. So we are seeing that again being rolled out. But when you think about some of these larger campuses, there's communication rooms everywhere. I know one corporate campus that actually installed, I want to say it was 45 or 50 of the LD 1500s throughout the entire campus in areas, not just data centers. So understanding, corporate mentality when these sites are being built and understand who the general contractors are and getting in early is really going to help open up opportunities there. Another one that came to light recently is as a result of COVID, actually, and it was CO2 monitoring within the school district. And what happened was there was a school district that actually was concerned about, they wanted to make sure that students who were tested with a fever had a place that they can be isolated. But at the same time, they wanted to make sure that isolation room had proper ventilation and proper airflow, and they wanted to monitor CO2. And they actually are now in the process of rolling out our wireless CO2 sensors in those areas that are kind of designed as holding areas for students that might be tested with a fever. Now, certainly the opportunity is not just campus environments, really everywhere. But one other thing that I do want to mention or talk about actually before I will move on, when you think about fire suppression systems, Obviously, in outside the data center, you might have wet suppression, so you have sprinklers that go off, unfortunately, sometimes those leak. And I see a lot of opportunity, even talking to the local fire suppression installers, and finding out what they're using and how they identify those issues. I was at a trade show with the International Security Expo, and it was focused really on security products. And somebody looked at me and they're like, "Well, what does leak detection have to do with security?" And I said, "You know what? I can take a shot glass full of water and I can take out any security system in the building." And people just don't really think along those lines. Great example of that, actually, it was a kind of a personal story. And my wife and I were actually went on holiday, and we were staying at a resort, and a lot of rain going. It was actually up in the mountains. And about midnight, fire alarm system went off, and they cleared the building. Everybody went out, wondered what's going on. Next day, I was talking to, as far as receptions, and when we were checking out, they said, actually, we had new construction. Somebody hadn't plugged a gas line coming into the building on the upward side of the hill, and the water rolled in, hit that pipe, rolled down, rolled all the way across into the lobby, and then dripped onto their fire panel. And the whole reason for the alarm going off, it was basically the rain was shorting out their fire suppression system. So, certainly, again, raised floors are not just in the data center anymore. You've got to understand that a lot of buildings are actually now being built on raised floors. A lot of commercial buildings where they might have a centralized core. Within that core, they have all their plumbing, and they have their bathroom fixtures. And it's not unusual seeing some of these large high-rise buildings now for commercial that are incorporating leak detection, monitoring that core, central core, or even the perimeter walls to be able to identify if there are leaks going on. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities within the corporate structure and campus environment. When it comes to hospitals, healthcares, laboratories, there's more on the line than just protecting assets. Now, in these cases, sometimes even lives can be at risk. I worked with a healthcare provider that contacted me as usual in a panic after the damage was already done. They had been pulling submarine alarms from their generator. They weren't pulling detailed information that might be available via a protocol, SNMP, Modbus, or BACnet. And what ended up happening was their block heater ended up on the generator was stuck in the on position. And they ran into a situation where they had to transfer the load to the generator. But unfortunately, as soon as they transferred the load over, the generator went into alarm and went to an immediate shutdown. And the entire facility went black. Obviously, that is not a good situation. The biggest issue was that the site was a multi-state hub for a healthcare provider. And when that site went dark, there were hospitals, there were clinics that had no visibility to the patient records. It was obviously, they can create a lot more problems than just a repair some damage situation. Ultimately, the genset, they added another genset to that. They were both integrated into an FMS through Modbus protocols, but then that info was passed up to their management system from the FMS. So again, unfortunately, that reactionary mentality, we see it all the time. I was at another pharmaceutical company doing a site survey, and it was kind of interesting because the mechanicals were all located on the top floor of the building. For utilities, they had pumps up there, and they, as far as air conditioners, HVACs, everything else. And while we were up there, we actually identified no less than, I think it was like 12 or 13 leaks. But they said, yeah, it's not a big deal. They did small drips. We do have curbs, we do have drains, so it's not a big concern. We know they have it, but that's why we're talking to you. We want to, maybe be a little bit proactive. And we put together a quote form to put some leak detection in place. And so the story goes, it wasn't, a few weeks later, the gentleman who was actually kind of holding off on the approvals, as far as trying to justify spending the money, a black water pipe ruptured above his office and rained down through his office. Underneath his office, the next floor down, were some blood analysis machines. It actually ended up taking out a couple $1 million worth of blood analysis machines. And what the quote originally was about an 8,000 or 9,000, I think ultimately ended up a little less than $20,000 worth of leak detection was installed at that site. So again, understanding what those issues are, where those threats are. A couple other real quick ones. We had a university that had a power outage. It spiked. Temperatures destroyed valuable temperature sensitive tests. Ultimately, it was identified that it was a fluid leak that caused, that took out the HVAC system to begin with. We see laboratories with cryogenic freezers that are incorporating our products into those applications to be able to monitor temperatures within those freezers. They incorporate a 4 to 20 milliamp sensor tied to the FMS, put that sensor in what they call a glycol bottle. So if it opens, it's not an immediate change in temperature. It takes a minute or two, creates kind of that thermal buffer. So certainly we see a lot of applications in those type of environments. The thing that I really want to stress is that when you think about applications within hospitals and healthcare and laboratories, they're already suited for RLE's Wi-Fi solutions. They already have Wi-Fi networks. So now you can incorporate whether it's a wing wireless or a Wi-Fi utilizing their routers, great. They have refrigerators, they have freezers, warming cabinets. The list goes on of different environmentals that are of serious concern. And if they lose, temperatures in a freezer or refrigerator or warming cabinet, what impact could that have on tests that they might be running? Again, it's really a matter of understanding who manages the facility, talking to those people, the stakeholders, the ones that are going to have the biggest vested interest in when events do occur, to identify those and resolve those in a timely manner. Now, not many people realize that most museums actually have more artifacts in storage and in the basement than they do actually on exhibit. They're constantly changing those exhibits. They're constantly keeping it fresh and moving things around. The stuff that's down out of sight in the basement, it's priceless. You can't put a value on some of that. And then, being out of sight, it's certainly not out of mind. Water is an issue, but so are other environmental conditions. Temperature is a big issue. Humidity. You look at, as far as a film storage area, certainly humidity can be a huge issue. Now, what we generally will see is that, well, I'll say it. RLE has some of our leak detection products installed in some of the world's most recognizable museums. If you were to think of 3 national museums that we're probably most likely in 2 of them. But, when you look at the storage facilities, a lot of times what they're doing is they have what are kind of rolling storage or rolling shelves. And the problem is it's not easy to wire that, because those can move and you spread the shelves to get at certain areas, then you can move them over. And that's where our wing products have really been utilized. Because the nice thing about that, you lay that sensor down, run the sensing wire, for example, for leak detection, and that the rolling shelf can roll wherever you want. It's not going to make a difference as far as to the wiring that you already have, so you don't have hard conduit running everywhere. We also see sensing cable installed above drop ceilings on ceiling tiles. We generally recommend using kind of a plastic visqueen or a tarp on top of those, because those tiles can act as a sponge, and water drips on it and it soaks in real quick. So anything you can do to contain that water and help it puddle, that way you can obviously incorporate, whether it's spot sensors or cable. Now that way the sensors themselves can detect that as well. We see it commonly encapsulating actual artifacts. You see the one image up here where that's some sensing cable laying by, some priceless, I think whether they're violins or fiddles, I'm not sure, but, it's not unusual to see the cable right along actual artifacts just to identify any leaks that might be coming in that area. So being proactive up high and even something secondary down low is not a bad idea. But when you think about other areas, libraries with archives, courthouses, any place where there might be document storage, everything's moving electronic, but generally with electronics, water and electronics don't get along. So there's opportunity there. But in the same breath, a lot of facilities are still maintaining those hard copies, which obviously water will damage those as well. You look at storage facilities. Now, anything it might be a storage, I wouldn't necessarily say a self-storage. In many cases, those self-storage units are going to go ahead and you're going to sign off on a disclaimer that you're not responsible for whatever conditions. But other areas that might be storing, whether it's documents or archives or artifacts or whatever it might be, certainly those are going to be areas of consideration when looking at other opportunities for RLE's products. We've seen a big push also in stadiums and airports and casinos. And one case study that we have with the Cleveland Indians, it's a little bit more focused on their data centers, but I just love the quote that they had, and it kind of ties into the one I mentioned earlier, but it's a set it and forget it. It works great. And that's generally the feedback we get from all of our customers. When you're looking at stadiums and airports and casinos and the way they're being built out today, you have water features that are being incorporated in these, and obviously understanding leaks from those water features. The concession stands, throughout that have water lines running to them. You have the IDF and MDF rooms scattered everywhere. And in some cases, you might have those executive offices and suites with the expensive build outs on those as well. There's been no question a spike in the request for our products in airport terminals. And we're seeing everything from distance read to, and a lot of it's leak detection, seeing distance read to zone systems like the LD1000 scattered throughout the facility or the building and then tied into the management system via the dry contacts that are available out of the products. We've recently actually been very involved in a number of the World Cup stadiums that are being built in Qatar. Same reasons, beautiful water features, concession stands everywhere. And, obviously a lot of risks as far as to what water might potentially damage. We're seeing some of the new multi-billion dollar football stadiums that are being built in the U.S. utilizing our leak detection, for example. I had one stadium recently up and running. Watch it on Sunday and see some games being played there Sunday now, but they had dozens of our LD1000s. And where it was applicable, they installed the distance read systems where it made more sense. We're seeing casinos. Now, you think about a casino, generally they're going to be built on raised floors when you get into their gaming rooms. And they have all that structured cabling underneath those running from the slots and everywhere else. And the thing is, a little bit of water in those areas can create quite a bit of havoc if they lose communication to that equipment. We're actually in the process right now with one casino, and in their IDFs alone, they're putting close to 70 F200s. They got about 40 of our LD1500s, about almost 9,000 feet of sensing cable. And what they're actually even talking about at this point now as well is looking at a full perimeter around the entire outside of the building. And that could be almost close to 5,000 feet of cable. So again, a lot of opportunities out there. It's just a matter of understanding. And what we're really seeing is it's quite a bit of, as far as driven by insurance. Insurance is not blind to the money that they're spending on claims due to water-related issues. Multi-site locations. I do encourage you to look at multi-site applications as well. We have 3 case studies that I'm not going to get into details, but one of them is 911 emergency networks with 24 remote microwave tower sites. We're monitoring everything from smoke, leak detection, power. Nothing was aggregated. Now it's all tied up into the FMS and rolling through the Delta View that I talked about. U.S. Geological Survey, they monitors the planet for seismic activity. They're using the Falcon, and they can see when AC power fails to have it investigated locally, so they don't have to roll trucks out there just to see what's going on. They have visibility, and these are scattered well over 100 sites all over the planet. Another one a little bit smaller, but Yakima County, Washington, another case study we have. Quote out of that, being able to remotely monitor all of its sensors increases our ability to troubleshoot problems faster and more accurately. And that's generally the response we have from our customers. But when I think about other applications as far as multi-site cell towers, cable service providers, great example. We had one of the largest cable service providers rolling our products out, and they actually purchased an FMS and sensors, set it up at one site, configured it, then sent us the configurations. And then they went ahead and sent us an order for, it was like 60 or 70 more systems, all boxed, pre-configured, ready to go. So a lot of flexibility there. We had another cable service provider that was cycling their generators every week with utilizing the FMS. They were using it to turn on and off satellite receivers, reboot them remotely, so they don't have to expensive truck rolls for trucks to go out there just to reboot a piece of equipment. They utilize the FMS to do that. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities within kind of that multi-site arena as well. And then certainly worth mentioning, vertical worth mentioning, manufacturing, production. We're seeing a lot of water-cooled equipment. With water-cooled, now you have that threat you're introducing into those areas. Certainly an interruption to a production line can be very costly. With more automation, the need for incorporating those additional sensors is only going to increase. And if you think you might recognize that person wearing the bunny suit, looking at RLE's LDRA 6 there on the right, it is me. And as a side note, I just want to say that I think the bunny suit actually makes me look like I've added about 10 pounds. Now, certainly last but certainly not least, I want to talk a little bit about custom homes. A lot of the custom homes that we're seeing being built actually have very comprehensive monitoring and management systems in place. Plumbing, they're looking at indoor pools and jacuzzis. Bathrooms, we've seen installs where a bathroom actually has a 2-inch water line going to the master bath shower, which is kind of unheard of, but got the money and you want to request it, you're going to get it. But certainly any other water feature, dishwashers, washing machines, those are all areas of concern. It's no secret, water heaters will fail, and everybody's going to deal with that at some point. It's just a matter of how bad that is. Do you identify it quickly, or do you walk into a basement full of water? Generally, when I look at residential applications, I also look at spots versus sensing cable. I look at wired versus wireless solutions. Obviously, it's going to be a lot easier on a retrofit, going back and going with a wireless solution, incorporating that into it, as opposed to having to go ahead and hardwire a wired leak detection system. One notable example that definitely we're sharing as far as custom projects, we're still involved with, it's actually a Hollywood Mogul. I think that's about all I can say about that, but they actually have 40 independent HVACs located throughout, most of them up in the attic space. So most of the rooms have their own independent controls for heating and air conditioning. They actually installed unique water lines just to supply water for their mechanicals. And what we ended up doing at that one site, we put 3 of our LD2100s with one on each floor, about 550 foot of cable. And the thing that's interesting about this install is probably 50% of our sensing cable is located behind plaster that's going to require cutting just to access it. So certainly, that's a consideration as well. How accessible are the areas that you're looking at it? We also have another application. It's actually a philanthropist, well-known philanthropist that has some multi-million-dollar paintings hanging around his house, that he actually ended up utilizing our sensing cable, and it was kind of a unique, and unique applications require unique solutions, and they actually just took the sensing wires off of our cable and twisted the 2 sensing wires together, so it's very thin and very not very noticeable, and they actually lined the top of the paintings with the sensing wire from our sensing cable to be able to help protect those multi-million-dollar paintings. But the thing is getting creative. Where are the concerns? What do you need to do to resolve those? How are they best resolved? And certainly a lot of opportunities, get in touch with your local custom home builders. Another thing is that I just want to mention real quick is residential applications, looking at apartments and condos. When you look at as far as getting into that environment, basically, gravity pulls everything down. So if there's a leak up high, it's going to roll down. We recently had a development in London that had 60 flats or apartments. We installed spot sensors in every water fixture, about 15 sensors in every one of the apartments or flats. Each flat had its own Seahawk 10K connected to it, and that way that was all tied back to the management system. Again, gravity creates damage. Here in Colorado, Summit County actually put a mandate in place that the insurance companies are saying we will go ahead and pay a claim the first time you have an alarm, but the second time you have an alarm, we're not going to pay it if you don't have leak detection in place. So now again, we're seeing those insurance companies driving it. But looking at complexes and developments, even condo associations, and seeing where those opportunities. And then lastly, certainly looking at residential applications, looking at primary residences. You don't have to have $1 million property to be concerned about issues. And like I say, it's just a matter of time before an ice maker line or a dishwasher or washing machine or even a water heater leaks. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Are you going to be there to identify it before the damage is done? Frankly, my house, I have, matter of fact, the left side here, this is actually what I'm monitoring at my house. I'm able to see outside temperature just out of curiosity, the temperature on different floors, but most important alarms that I'm concerned about are leak detection and identifying, I'll go to bed, I can see if the garage door is open or if the gates on either side of the house might be open if somebody went through it, forgot to shut it. And the last thing I want to do is chase the dogs. But again, getting creative. I'm planning on adding some other sensors, maybe CO2, smoke detection, gas. I got a little creative with the gates. This one image here of the Wing DI, I actually found an enclosure that it fit perfectly in with the magnetic sensor. So it's watertight. So I just mounted that out on the gate, and then the other side of the magnetic sensor is on the gate. So when it opens, I'm able to identify it. But the biggest thing I want to stress is opportunities are everywhere. Water is destructive. Environmental factors need to be a consideration. Again, temp, humidity, intrusion, gas, all of those are concerns. RLE is providing a number of products that really give you the ability to get creative and come up with, again, those custom solutions for those unique opportunities. I wanted to kind of wrap it up and talk a little bit about some of the discovery questions that help uncover those opportunities. Regardless whether you're a reseller uncovering opportunities or may be an end user, but certainly when you look at leak detection, have there ever been any issues or damage caused by fluid with leaks? How are those issues discovered? Did somebody walk into a basement on Monday morning and they're in 2 foot of water? Or did somebody happen to, it was raining down on an office? Was there damage or downtime? What were those costs? Getting people thinking about what that expense was. Are reliable leak detection products installed? And I stress reliable. And the reason is, I used to ask, do you have leak detection? People said, yep. And I moved on. When I ask if they have reliable, I can't tell you how many stories I hear from people saying, yeah, we got leak detection, but I get so many nuisance alarms. And that's a great opportunity for RLE's products because of the design eliminating false alarms. And also understanding if insurance companies are offering incentives or discounts with leak detection installed. Now, when we look at the Falcon facility monitoring products, understanding if all sensors and alarm signals are integrated into an alarm notification system. Certainly, are alarms routed to the right people? Are there recurring costs? Are there sensors that might be difficult in running wiring to? Certainly, that opens up the door for opportunities with RLE's Wing products as well. But these are all great questions and great ways to start those discussions. So in summary, if you're an end user, don't wait until the damage has been done to decide that it's time to take action, as most do. It's not a matter of if there's going to be an event that causes damage or downtime. It's a matter of when. And when seconds matter, identifying an issue quickly could make the difference between a small event or a catastrophic event. Ultimately, you're going to experience an event that could possibly be damaging both assets and your reputation. Just how damaging it's going to be, it will depend on how quickly you respond and resolve that issue. If you're a reseller, make sure your customers are aware of the solutions that you offer with alarm monitoring and direct notification. So they can either be proactive or else at the very least, know who to call after the damage has been done. The needs for RLE products are everywhere. Critical environments are not just data centers anymore. Water is destructive. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when there's going to be issues. And every facility has factors that are going to be concerned. I really do stress, understand what all those concerns are and where the threats are, to understand those threats aren't just visible. What's 2 floors up? What's 3 floors up? What might rain on the parade, so to speak, or create issues? Even though budgets that don't allow for the purchase today, as soon as there's an event resulting in costly damage or even work stoppage, downtime, customers need to know who to call. And when those budgets do magically appear for the purchase of a system, prevent the damage from happening again, they're going to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody that can help them with that. I really strongly encourage you to start thinking outside the box, or the data center for that matter, and start looking at those countless other applications for the solutions that RLE's products can provide. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Jenny, talk a little bit about RLE's services team and other available resources that RLE has developed that you should be utilizing. Jenny?
Thank you so much, Cam. So at the very beginning of the presentation, Cam discussed ease of install with our products. And I wanted to take a moment to remind you that as we look at these big projects in these new verticals, we do have a services team that's available to come help you get the job done. Our goal is to work as an extension of the companies who contract us. We have detailed checklists and pre-visit protocols, so when we get to a site, that services team is engaged, prepared, and ready to work. They're not there because our products are difficult to install or difficult to configure. They're more there to help you to act as an arm of your company. You might need monitoring, but don't have time to do the install because it's a laborious process sometimes if you're doing it right. So they're there to kind of do that hard work so you can sit back and do the daily grind that keeps you busy and occupied all the time. They're also there to help you maximize the capabilities of our products. They know the ins and outs of everything. Services team also helps with support at RLE, so they know where the pitfalls are. They know the ins and outs of all of our products. They're available to come for site evaluations, so they'll walk you through and help figure out what exactly you need. And they do everything from evaluations, installs, setups, to end user training. So when you're prepared to use and maintain your system is when we leave. And the products Cam talked about, the projects Cam has talked about through this presentation, RLE Services has been on site to help with the installs of a lot of those projects. They're experienced, they're professional, and quite honestly, especially now at the end of the year, their time is filling up fast. So if you think you need services to help you out with a project, now's the time to call and get that ball rolling. And if you want to hop to the next slide, Cam, this is kind of my favorite one of the whole presentation. So I'm glad Cam let me talk about this because this is so near and dear to the heart of the marketing and communications team at RLE. Our website is packed with resources to help you understand, spec, install, configure, and use our products. We have case studies, the in-depth case studies of everything Cam talked about today. We have blogs on there. All the webinars we've done in the past are recorded. And then if you go to the product pages for each of our products, there are data sheets, there are technical notes, quick start guides, user guides, live demo equipment links from there. There are just so many ways for you to better understand and learn how to maximize our products. And I want to add now too, for all of you out there, if there's documentation that you feel like you would love to see for our products, let us know. Our job is to make our products easy to understand, and we don't know if we're missing something if nobody tells us. So if there's a kind of documentation you'd love to see for our products, please let us know so we can be responsive and help you out with that. In addition to all the information available on our website, we're always here to personally help you. If you are live chatting, you're talking with a human that is in our office, half the time it's me, half the time it's Rebecca. I sit right next to the support staff, so it's easy for me to call in and get help if there's a question that's over my head. But we're live people. We're always here to talk, email. You can call us directly anytime, and you're always interacting with a member of the RLE staff. We don't contract or outsource any of that. We'd love to talk to you anytime about additional product introductions, product recommendations, quotes and availability, training, support, pretty much anything you need. We're here to help you, and we are ready to have personal conversations with you. And with that, I think that has taken us to the end of the formal part of our presentation today. So I am going to go ahead and open up the mic. So you'll all get a request to unmute. If you would like to unmute and kind of enter into a roundtable discussion, we'd love to have you. If you have any questions that you'd like to pop into the live chat, we can address those there too. But I just want to make sure that you all know how much we appreciate the time you spent with us today. We hope you have found this valuable. I thought this was an awesome webinar because I love seeing how our products actually work in different places and different verticals. So this one I just think is super interesting. But with that, the floor is open to each and every one of you if anybody has any questions or conversations you'd like to have today. So thank you for joining us.
And to keep background noise to a minimum, if you don't have something to say, please leave your mic muted.
Jenny, when will this recording be available?
So the recording will take about an hour or two to kind of process and get out, and then we go in and clean it up and modulate the volume. So it'll be ready maybe by the end of the day today. If not, it'll be up in the morning. And since you're all registered for the webinar, you'll get an email when it's up, and there'll be a direct link to the webinar in that email.
Hey, Kim, it's Rob Hutterman. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. How you doing?
Thank you.
You probably recognized one of those stories.
I recognize several of them. Yeah. Some brought a smile, and other ones made me take a gulp. But we're finding opportunity outside the data center as well as kind of a new territory, for our services and the solutions we provide. But with regard to kind of that subject, and you talk about the stadiums and the museums and the archives, is most in the hospital work, maybe not so much the hospitals because we do stuff in there, but the other ones, is that mainly bid spec work that like an AD&E firm is doing, and then like mechanical contractors bid that out and come to you for pricing? Or do you have VARs like us and some of the other folks on this presentation that are actually like selling into those types of organizations and working directly with them? Like how is that business conducted, if that's a fair question?
No, that's a perfect question. I understand exactly where you're going.
It does take effort and resource and commitment to sell and market into those types of entities. And if it's going down through like a bid spec and the whole AD&E play and their kind of contractor network, it's tough to crack into that.
Right.
So I was just curious as to kind of, is there something you find that's predominant in the way it goes down, or is it kind of hit or miss depending on where it's at?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above, Rob. I have, as far as in Qatar, I have a very strong partner there that's been very involved in going after the stadiums that are being built for World Cup. So certainly when you look at that now, in other cases, it's a bid spec sit in the street that keeping partners that are keeping their eye out. Now, if you're going after that business, that's where your project registration really comes into play, because helps protect your numbers as far as to give you an advantage over anybody else. So if you are proactively going after that market, certainly we want to make sure that you are rewarded for your efforts and it doesn't fall elsewhere, or else you won't be doing that for very long for us. So with the project registration, you get that premier pricing to help ensure that anything lands your way. But I think honestly, I see both sides where it's specs hitting the street that people are looking for, and we have partners that are actually going after those specific verticals.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Kind of.
I mean, I kind of. I mean, our focus is quite honestly is domestically, and
Right.
you know, when you're a relative, I mean, we're not a huge company, so when you put efforts into selling into something that's out of our kind of core sweet spot, which is the data center, and we're knowledgeable enough to apply it into different markets, it's just how is that business kind of being conducted, and is there room for, call it a, you know, a VAR versus something that's coming out of a design firm and being sent out to, you know, half a dozen contractors who just kind of bid it out. And
Right.
you know, and is it usually, I assume it's usually part of a larger project. It's not just a leak detection at a stadium. It's the guys doing low voltage cabling or falls within someone's
250
scope.
pages of a spec that comes in through the door, and they say, hey, there's leak detection, figure out where it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's generally, and I see it, you know, buried in HVAC. I see it buried in plumbing. I see it buried. I mean, that's one of I think one of the hardest things is it could be in several different places in those specs.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments, or anyone want to share an application outside the data center that they're working on? All right. Jenny, you want to go ahead and wrap it up?
All right, well, yeah, for sure. I think if no one else has anything at this moment, we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar since we're right over our hour. I just want to reemphasize that if, as you rewatch the webinar, pass it off to coworkers, or as you think about it as your day goes on, if you have any more questions, Kim is absolutely happy to talk with you anytime about any of your leak detection or monitoring needs or jobs or you're looking at or verticals you're looking to tap into. We're here to help you out. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us anytime. We appreciate you and we appreciate your continued patronage.